Hi, friends. Welcome to the very first episode of Neurodivergent, Not Broken. I'm Sam.
Scott.
Before we jump in, quick disclaimer, we are not medical or mental health professionals. We are just sharing our lived experiences as a neurodivergent family. Everyone's story is different, so take what resonates and leave what doesn't.
Basically, just don't sue us.
Yeah, exactly. This space is about honesty, not prescriptions or diagnosing.
So, why neurodivergent, not broken? When we both got our diagnoses, and myself a few times, we kind of felt like there was this gap. You know, you kind of wrap it up with the doctor. Maybe they give you a sheet of a couple books or a website you can go check out. And then other than that, it's just kind of like a good luck. Depending on where you're in the whole realm of things, maybe there's medication you can start looking at. And even then, that's kind of a big open space until you can finally sit down with the doctor and go through it. So other than that, when you walk out of there, you can still kind of have this internalized ableism, or you still have that shame that could be there, or this feeling that there's just something wrong with you.
I remember when I was diagnosed, all they really gave me was like a sheet with maybe some book recommendations and like a list of things to do, like get a planner and always have a notebook and pen on you to write down your thoughts so you don't forget. I don't know. I don't think it's not bad. It's not wrong. I just didn't find it super helpful for myself at that part of my journey. That kind of set off a ripple effect of us trying to figure this all out of like, okay, well, now we have some answers and understanding. Now what? What do we do with that? Realizing that our whole family was neurodivergent and we all ended up with a diagnosis. That in itself is not necessarily easy to get, especially depending on who you are. But what comes after that piece of it? Like, how do we understand ourselves better? How do we understand each other better? We really decided there should be more community and more support with real stories.
Right. If you kind of go, I guess when I was searching online originally trying to find something out, what to do next, what to expect, it seemed like it was either, super polished social media stuff, kind of laughing, haha, this is the funny quirks of ADHD, for example, or, you delve into the world of just searching on Reddit. And if anyone has ever tried to look at anything on Reddit, it's a flip of a coin what you're going to get, let alone, I'm the kind of person who hates reading books. So you can imagine me just having to read text on a computer, for example, does not last long. So with that, kind of what we decided to do is kind of build more or less another community, or at least try to get a conversation going. A lot of this podcast is just going to be about, our real lived experiences. This isn't, you don't have to have everything figured out if you want to be here. We definitely do not have everything figured out. And we're not super polished. You're going to notice that when we talk and we trail and monologue and do anything else in the background, like that's just realistic. That's how it is, if you're sitting down with us or whatever. But just real experiences or real conversations about our experiences, really being vulnerable, really talking about those emotions or the raw experience of it, just to see if anyone else can, confide in that relates to it.
Okay, and today in our first episode, we're just going to share some of our story, how we got here, what life looks like for us now as a neurodivergent family, and what you can expect moving forward. So, I was the first of the bunch to get diagnosed ADHD at 33 a couple years ago, and that led to Scott's ADHD diagnosis, then our kids diagnosed, and then Scott's autism diagnosis. It kind of just set off this chain of events. Like once we knew more about it, we realized we all had some form of neurodivergence. And, the more you learn, the more you realize how genetic a lot of this is. So, if there's a child, then, there's probably a parent. And if there's a parent, there's probably a child that is also neurodivergent. So I kind of started this ripple effect for us because Scott was sort of fed up with me not paying attention to him and not listening to him. I think we had that same ongoing conversation for of him telling me something, and then 10 minutes later, me having no recollection of what he had told me and him being really frustrated and me telling him, I swear I'm not doing this on purpose. I really don't remember what you told me. And I finally was like, you know what? I'm going to go make an appointment for an assessment because maybe there is something else going on. And that led to an inattentive ADHD diagnosis for me. Scott, what's your side of that story?
Well, yeah. So I guess my kind of side of it was I came back from a deployment a few years ago. This would have been about a year before your diagnosis. When I came back, I surprisingly had quite a hard time adjusting. It's not unheard of to come back from a deployment, and there's some quirks you got to work through. They offer us a lot of support on that side of things, whether it's financial or whatever. But I feel like it was a lot more of like the executive functioning side of it. And I just never quite got back to where I was. So we just kind of rolled with it. I definitely, obviously, before leaving, I wasn't a perfect human being either way. So just one of those, just some of my quirks, and kind of drive on and see how it goes. We were actually camping with a couple families, and someone there was talking about being late diagnosed ADHD. And through that conversation, kind of initially sparked something for you and I. And we still kind of just shrugged it off a little bit. I remember we didn't really immediately pursue it. It was like, that would kind of make sense, kind of do what a lot of people probably do and watch Instagram reels or something and kind of slowly start paying a little more attention to it. And for me, it was a few months later on, I had a huge, I guess I'd call it a breakdown. I don't really want to say meltdown because to me, that's not, I guess, severe enough. Kind of this big moment while I was at work where at a huge lockup. Now I've kind of learned the wording of it feels like I was in cement. My feet were in cement. I couldn't move. It felt like my brain was in wet cement, or like every time I was trying to make a thought, I was just saying it and it just disappeared. There was no answer. And I was frozen on a job site for, gosh, I don't know, 40 minutes or something crazy. I remember calling you, trying to talk through it. And after that, was okay, well, clearly we got to figure something out here. And as many of you probably know, if you've already looked into it, ADHD screenings can take forever to sign up. I think I was 9 months out, 10 months out, give or take. So anyways, I'm already monologuing because this is Sam. I've already had to take a couple takes of this. I want to talk for like 40 minutes straight about my story. So bear with me, guys. Fast forward, the following summer is when I got my went to get screened, got my diagnosis. Leading up to that, I was going through meds with my doctor, anxiety, depression, all this stuff, essentially waiting for that to see what it was. They were just kind of shooting from the hip to see it could be this, could be that, X, Y, or Z. So I got my diagnosis. You are inattentive, and then was it general and hyperactive or combined? Yep, there it is, combined. And even, we'll get into it in another episode, but just even the story of the differences that you and I had to go through of totally different departments, different process, the whole thing was just, frustrating to say the least. But essentially, yeah, so I got diagnosed. And it was, in a couple of weeks, I have an appointment with my doctor to start talking about medication. Same thing with you. Here's a piece of paper essentially with a couple bullet points. Check out this website or read this book, which is kind of funny to think about, just diagnosed someone with ADHD. My scores for like long-term attention span are the bottom 5% or whatever it was. And then you hand me, here, go read this book. Like, is there cliff notes? Is there, you know what I mean? Like, so right off the bat, I'm like, okay, well, this is ridiculous. So then, I go through this a way messier process of medication than you went through. Again, I was on multiple anxiety meds, depression. I went all the way up, all the way down, all over the place. Like after about a year or so, I really kind of got on a stable dose of whatever I could do or handle. And I just remember that feeling of like, I feel like certain things are kind of being handled by this, but like there's just other stuff out there. Like I'm still struggling. I'm still there's just all these other symptoms that just, not that I was expecting a magic cure through medication. And that was one of the things that kind of triggered for, potentially checking out autism, which is yet another whole big hurdle and a hill to get up and over. And I was just actually diagnosed. And I remember even leading up to my autism diagnosis, I'd been seen once before, and I had this whole big feeling of going through the whole process, explaining myself, explaining X, Y, or Z, how my whole world view is, all this stuff, to just kind of get slapped with a kind of a bullshit label. And then feeling like I wasn't
Well, you just
heard.
have social anxiety.
Right. Yeah. And I never even read the full paperwork, right? I left the office and was basically told this is social anxiety. If you, and more or less, if you identify as autistic, that's great. You can go and find resources related to that. And there was probably more that they offered me at the time, but it was kind of hard to really take them serious when it was. So you tell me to identify, you tell me here's a couple websites, but then you're just going to totally blow it off that I could have it. And even I remember after that, it was months later. Again, I'm in this, I guess I didn't say this ahead of time. Part of our difference in our journeys is that I've been absolutely buried in burnout since I've been back from that deployment. So we're going on 3 years, almost 3.5 years that I've been like truly in the dumps, as low as I've been in my life, burnout. So mind you, after that didn't help. And I'm still kind of going through all that. And I don't remember why we looked up the actual notes on our provider's app. You can go back and see all your previous doctor visits and everything. And
Oh, I mean,
we,
I was curious to read them.
yeah, maybe it's just we're still talking about it, maybe. And I remember pulling it up, and that was the first time I ever actually reviewed it, or you read it and kind of asked me about it. And it was this feeling of like, what? Like, I didn't say that, or that's all they said about it. Like, I talked for 10 minutes straight about that, and all they gave me was a single bullet point, just saying I don't like to be around people.
Well, and there was plenty of things that, like, you had told me you guys had talked about in your appointment that they were just not in the notes
Yeah.
at all. And I had given you, a whole list of things to bring in with you as well to make sure that the doctor was aware of.
Yeah, my little cheat sheet, because yeah. Anyways, again, I can already see I'm monologuing about this. I'm trying, guys. I'm really trying. Sam's better at keeping it straight than I am. So anyways, fast forward, Sam found me what'd you call it, a third party or
Private practice.
private practice person, doctor,
Provider.
provider. Yeah. So I found me a third party or a private party provider, and I was able to get in, and they themselves are also actually autistic. And the feeling I got from them, just purely based on finally, like when I'm talking to them and I'm describing the stuff that, I don't think is ADHD, that could be this autism, for example. It's like, yep, this is what it's called. And then here's exactly how that looks. And here's this. And they knew exactly what it was. Or if I was starting to talk about my sensory issues or things like that, I could tell that they know themselves because they also have those things about them as well. And I'm not saying that every provider has to, if you're going in for anxiety, your provider doesn't have to have anxiety. That's not what it means. It just means like that was the first time I've interacted with another adult in this whole journey that was also autistic, and just that instant, kind of back and forth to that feeling, right? I'm kind of going over that previous trip where they said I had social anxiety, and their jaw hit the floor. They couldn't believe some of the stuff that came out of that. So much so that in our, in the series of all of our appointments, multiple appointments, the very first one, in the first 10 minutes, pretty much already knew. Just from me talking to myself for a few minutes, this is all through, Zoom or whatever the app is that they use. But in the first 10 minutes, they could already tell. We still did the hours worth of appointments and multiple visits and all the stuff. But like to them, it was that apparent already. So we'll get into all the details more about that, whatever. But anyway, so then here we are. So that's still newly fresh. Anyways, so part of that would be where we were talking originally, what? You get the diagnosis, how it feels originally, and then there's the gap, right? There's the what next? What do you do next? Again, if ADHD, for example, you meet with your doctor and go through medication. There's all different types of medication. There's all different types of dosages. You and I take different medications, completely different dosages.
And we've
And
also
then,
taken the same kind.
yeah. And then, so if like autism, for example, in my case, my provider was great and has had all this references, and they themselves do, say, like therapy, and they gave me other sources for that. So for me in that instance, it's great. Outside of that, though, again, with that other provider, it was like, well, if you identify as it, it's like, well, then what, I'm not trying to get cured of autism. I just, I just want to know. Yes, there's ADA protected kind of requirements that you can give an employer. But for me, it was like, I just want the answers. So I know a lot of I think a lot of diagnosis is like validation, right? I remember for myself, for you, right? When you finally heard that, it was that feeling kind of what you're talking about between you and me, for example, relationship. It wasn't just this, I just don't know why I can't listen and he complains about it, or vice versa, why he sucks so much with his executive function, which until you go down this rabbit hole, you don't ever hear the term executive function. That's not like in your vocabulary.
Nope.
But just all of a sudden, it was like, I know for me, it was this one of the big feelings I had was like, holy shit, like our couple top big like things with each other in this whole marriage after almost 16 years, it's like, and they're not even us. Like that's just our like default brain shit for us. That's not, you're not purposely not listening to me, or I don't purposely like avoid doing dishes or whatever. Like it's like, this is an actual thing. Doesn't mean it's perfect, right? Like
No,
we
not
still
at all.
both whatever,
Not
but
at
it's
all.
like, but we still give each other grace or try
Yeah, I
to.
think once you have that understanding, it can still be frustrating, no doubt, but I think there's a lot less. I think for both of us, that feeling of someone maybe doing it on purpose is like not quite what it was, and being like, oh, okay, you're not trying to ignore me, or you're not trying to like drive me crazy by, not taking out the garbage or helping with the dishes. It's like, no, there's something more going on here. And now that we know that, what changes do we need to make for both of us for each of us to have, better, different support, and to not take it so personally, like people they're just trying to do it to mess with you.
Well, and I think not only that, just between us, but then also our kids, right? They both got diagnosed with ADHD, but they're similar to us. They're like on two totally ends of the spectrum of it, right? We have one who we're probably going to pursue autism screening for. She's just, I would say, just like me, and has all the outward echolalia and noise, verbal stuff, a lot of the same sensory stuff. She has a lot more. I know you've talked about on that podcast with Heather. I don't know what you call it, with like the physical, where she needs to
Yeah,
like exert herself, or needs like physical pressure, whatever you call it.
the proprioceptive input.
Yep. It's like that. I
She
don't
needs
have.
a lot of like deep, intense pressure movement with her body.
Mm-hmm. And then, our other daughter is not quite there. Still has sensory stuff, still
Just like
kind of
me.
has that. Yep, I would say probably more on the inattentive side. But I know for me, a lot of it really changed. They're just like the patience stuff, right? Like I used to get really frustrated. So just like most parents, you're trying to feed your kids, right? I suck at food. I sometimes, every once in a great while, I'll want to cook something, but like I hate the idea of a night to night, daily, weekly food list, dinner list, sitting everybody down at the table. I'm not good at it. It's a whole thing for me. And I know you've talked about that. I know you're the exact same way. So that is definitely not one of our yin yang
No,
things between us. Like
we
we are
both
both,
struggle with
check
that.
that box. We're out of it, right? Like I'm ashamed to
You
admit.
want to get takeout? Yep.
Yeah, I'm ashamed to admit how much of that we eat. But before all this, right, it was the like, you try to have this idea of like, well, we made dinner. This is what it is. You either eat dinner, or you're not going to let your kids starve, the whole eat dinner, you don't. But you hit this huge like power dynamic with your kids. And I guarantee any other parent has dealt with this, neurodivergent or not, right? There's these power struggles, power shifts between you and your kids as they grow up, and they're pushing their boundaries. Excuse me, the whole thing. Um, I've one of our daughters was like chicken fingers or die. Like it was chicken fingers. That was it. That
Chicken
was like one of
tendies. Okay.
three foods. That was it. Like one of the three foods, and that was it. And before, it used to drive me nuts, and I'd say, like, well, what about this? We should try this. We can eat this. And eventually, after we kind of got all these diagnoses, it was like, like she's not going to starve, first of all, right? Even if they're not eating. But also, it was like, if this is her safe food, screw it. Like, I don't want to say what's the worst that can happen. I'm not a food expert or dietitian. This is not where we're going with that at all, right? There's so much bullshit out there in the world. But if chicken fingers are a safe food for her, where she knows she's going to eat them, she knows how much, that whole thing, then like, why not?
But there's also a lot of kids, like neurodivergent kids, who like literally they will not eat if they don't have safe foods.
Right.
Like it's not like, well, just give them long enough and they'll eventually eat. Like, some of these kids will not.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, the whole varying scale of, we're on the spectrum of the whole thing, you know, does your child land or do you yourself land on? And then it's not really until you kind of start going down this rabbit hole of everything of so if you want to think of it as a little slider, right? You go from 0 to 100, whatever those are defined as. So if one of them is food specificity, you know what I'm trying to say. I don't want to
Specific?
hear. Anyways, but now think about having 100 of those sliders, right? So maybe a neurotypical has like 20 sliders. It could be food, maybe 2 or 3 to food, clothes, maybe there's not even a slider, maybe they don't really care. All these things. And then I would define it as like, well, start getting neurodivergent. And now you might have 100 sliders, right? It's not just food. It's the color of food, the texture of the food, the temperature of the food, the smell of the food. And then also there's one that's like, well, what's the hunger level versus the, what can I sacrifice here? Or there's that slider that's 5 times bigger than all the other ones. It says, if it's not this, then get fucked. And it's just maxed all the way out, just like you're saying, right? So I remember looking at that, the chicken tenders, and, kind of thinking about of the safe food, right? And started thinking about myself. And I was like, well, when I go out to eat, right? Like if I get Chipotle, for example, I get the same thing that I've gotten for 10 years straight. I don't deviate at all. Like that's it. If we go to our favorite Mexican restaurant, I get basically the same thing every single time. And then we started looking around the house, right? I've been making these like little chicken burritos out of rotisserie chicken. And all of a sudden I realized like I've eaten one of those every day for 4 months straight. So like, is it really that weird that she just wants chicken tenders? Anyways, food is one thing, right? Just food. Again, a lot of this stuff is trying very hard not to monologue. I got to remember that this isn't just going to be like a 5-hour talk where we can just
We can
absolutely
do a
drown out.
whole episode. We can do multiple episodes just on food.
Yeah. But so food is one
I'm
thing.
envisioning, like, when you're talking about this, I'm envisioning like a soundboard, right? Like, and all the different sliders of like sensitivities, and maybe one day the slider is up more on one thing and maybe it's down more on another. Like, it's not always linear. It can kind of fluctuate a little bit, but
Or like if you're turning one slider up and then a couple other sliders are now like changing their position a little bit because of that, right? Like you start mixing in sensory, high sensory situations, and all of a sudden all his other sliders, right, are moving at the same time. I get that when if I'm like I forget to eat, you forget to eat, I forget to go to the bathroom a lot of times. So, but like it, if I am too overloaded sensory wise, right? It's typically when we're out in public, if we're at the mall, whatever it is, I'll be starving, hunger pains. I haven't eaten the entire day. It's 5 o'clock. And then when it comes time to like, what do you want to eat? And then I like shut down because I can't think anymore because sensory wise, I'm so far over my limit that, I don't know. I'm now your problem, but I have no idea what I want to eat. I have no idea what I need.
Mhm.
I'm just a pile of mush at this point. So just understand that with the kids, right? So you think about tantrums or you're at the store and you're having a really hard time. And a lot of parents, right? You feel that shame or embarrassment, or you're just having a tantrum because you want the whatever it is at the store or a snack or whatever it is. And it's like, or start thinking about it. And you're like, well, you haven't eaten since however long ago. It's a super sensory, or you're so far out of dysregulation that like, I know that feeling and that's how I feel too. So like, things like that, I think once you kind of get a diagnosis, at least with kids, sometimes it helps have that like either that patience or maybe it makes it easier in a way to like step back a little bit and say how much of this is regular parenting or how much of this is just this, right? ADHD could be autism, could be, anything in the realm of that.
I think that was a huge shift for us, and we had already made a lot of shifts in our parenting previous to all of this. We were already doing things quite differently than the norm to make sure that, we were trying to work in collaboration with our kids and not just have dominion over them. But this was another big thing for us, is having more grace and more understanding and trying to be more supportive of them and less dismissive of some of their behaviors. But I think if we didn't have the understanding of either their neurodivergence, I mean, things would be a lot harder. Now, instead, it's like, why can't you just put your dirty laundry in the hamper? Like, I can understand, well, number one, I struggle with that myself, but instead of
Same.
trying to make her feel bad for that and guilting her and shaming her, even if you don't mean to, it's now we try to just switch some of our language of like, hey, how could we help get your laundry in the basket? Like, what do we need to do to make this easier or more fun? What can I do to help you? And that has just improved our relationship with both of them. It's not always perfect. We're not always good about that, but we do make a point to try to change just the way we go about that instead of pathologizing. Oh my God, why can't you just push your laundry in the basket, even though, you
Hmm.
can't even do it yourself?
Yeah, don't look in mom and dad's room because we suck at it too. Keep it up.
It's the floor drobe.
Oh, yeah.
That was one of my favorite words I learned after a diagnosis, actually. The floor drobe.
Yep.
I was like,
Yep.
oh, we
Like,
have that.
mhm.
So hopefully you guys will find like some more funny, relatable parenting stories from us because, we're going to talk a lot about our relationship, our dynamic, but also with our kids too. But Scott and I are really lucky. We have this yin yang dynamic between the two of us where I'm very serious and I love deep conversations. And he is, a little more humorous than me, a little more playful and lighthearted when he is regulated.
Yeah, that's the emphasis on the when I'm regulated.
When, very big
Yeah.
emphasis.
Yeah, there's a very big shift otherwise.
Hmm. Hmm. I mean, we've just had such a different understanding of each other and how our brains work, and that's really changed how we interact with each other. Having this information and the diagnosis and the knowing, um, and how we show up for each other. Scott, do you want to speak just a little bit more about kind of that dynamic with us? And
Yeah.
now that we know this, like how are we different as a team? And we're really lucky to have each other and
Yeah.
both be
Yeah.
willing to learn and make some changes. But
Yeah, I think so like I said earlier, we've been married for just shy of 16 years, which is kind of wild to think about at our age. I think before all of this, we were pretty good about talking and being vulnerable with feelings and emotions and really trying to like work through stuff ourselves. Not every relationship is going to be, sunshines and rainbows, but, kind of had the mantra like try not to go to bed angry, don't call each other names. It's like on a base level, that was kind of where we started. But, I remember before all this, I would typically like bottle a lot of stuff up and then I'd usually kind of overflow a little bit. Or, unexplicably, I might have a quick 10-second spike at 100 and then be right back down and act like nothing ever happened. And at the time, we didn't know. I was like, well, maybe I'm just an asshole and I don't know it. Or, whatever it is, not knowing that, sorry, I got super frustrated, right? I was wearing shoes that aren't feeling right on my feet. My shirt's too tight around my armpits and I can feel the tag of it. And then I can hear the light bulb above me. And that's why I just like lost my shit for that quick little spike of it, right? So leading into all this, I'd like to say we're doing pretty good. But then through this whole process, I think the more we've talked about it, the more we both have been just fully vulnerable with each other. Which is, I understand like some people that's not what they do. Like there's some relationships that are like super old school traditional of like, I'm the guy, I'm not going to talk about my feelings, just stick you with all the stuff or, whatever that looks like. But I know for me now when I talk about some of this stuff, especially when I really get monologuing on it, I'm just cooking right along and maybe might think of like, well, how did he get a diagnosis? This dude's really just jabbering away. And it's like, well, I've talked about it so much. I've talked about it with you so much. I've been able to see, or like, as I've gone through this and explore, I guess myself, you've seen the absolute highs. And then you've now seen like some of my absolute lowest points, especially through this. I've been able to talk about like the really dark moments, the really, not just like, oh, I'm down or whatever, but like, no, here's like some real dark shit that I've thought about or whatever, whatever it is. Um, but for me, it's the more we've talked about it or try to find words to express it, I find a lot of comfort in just you being there. I don't think I really said about my whole big breakdown I had to kind of start the whole process, but I remember calling you and trying to explain it and being all over the place. And I think you were in the car with the kids and your mom. Like you were not in a position to just stop and help me. But I remember it wasn't even, you didn't necessarily have like magic words or anything. It was just that feeling of like you were there. Here's this moment. I'm in absolute panic,
I think I
whatever it
did. I
is.
think I
And you
did
just,
pull over. I
right.
remember
But
I
you know what I
pulled
mean? It
over
wasn't
and
like you were like in a
I was
nice,
standing outside the car.
yeah. But right, like what I mean, you could tell me what you were thinking in that moment, but like for me, it was more of that, like you were just that there was somebody there. I could just unload for 5 minutes, whatever it was, just unload whatever I'm stuck on. And then kind of learning also that, like, well, sometimes that's what I need. Sometimes it still happens at work. I get those times where I'm stuck or whatever it is. And sometimes I just need that, like, I'll call you and say, I just need 30 seconds. I just need to like say this all out loud so I can just like vent it or whatever. And then after that, sometimes it's like, okay, well, knowing you were there, whether you really paid attention or not, I have no idea. But just that, like, I don't need an answer. I don't need a fix from you. Sometimes it's just that, like, just knowing that you were there is enough.
Yeah, and I think that theme is one of the big reasons that has really brought us here now. Is I've seen that in my own day-to-day life in working behind a chair and talking about my own experiences and being vulnerable, and other people also feeling seen at the same time, and remembering that sometimes it's not about changing anything. Sometimes it's just someone seeing you and hearing you and just being there. And we're lucky that we have each other for that as well, but that can be a really powerful thing. And sometimes, the first thing we want to do is go in and fix it. What can I do? What can I do? What can I do? Like sometimes it's just sitting with each other through the shit, like through the really hard, like dark times of like, you don't even always have to say anything. It's just, I'm here. Let me know, let me know what you need.
On a quicker side, I think an example of how this has affected a relationship or us kind of having better grace for each other would be kind of this whole, again, these last few years, the burnout for me, speaking on my side, I became even more antisocial than what I used to be. Anyone who's known me more than a few years knows I'm a pretty good hermit. You might see me like a little bit, and then I disappear for 3 months. And you also, we're both on the same side of the yin yang, right? Like we're both good at doing that. But I really pulled back, really kind of scrolled myself away when I was in it. Anyway, so trying to come out of that, but just so now I think there's a lot of times where it's like, well, let's get up and go do something. Let's go do X. And then I can tell you, however that day is, I can just be like, I don't have it in me. Like today is not the day for me to be around a bunch of people. Like I'm already on edge. Like I can't do it, So, I mean, we've canceled plans. I missed a concert that was here in town. Who was it last summer? It was like Hawthorne Heights or somebody. Somebody I hadn't seen since, I was in high school listening to all that emo music. And I mean, they were doing a concert a mile and a half away from us. And I still couldn't bring myself to go to it in our town because I was so far, just like, I can't be around that many people. I already know the noise is going to be really bad. Like I already knew like I wouldn't be able to find the way to regulate myself. So going into it I could already see it happening. And then, so whether it's us as a family or even stuff like that, being able to just say, how does today look, or how is this, or, or you said earlier, it was like, well, what can I do to help? Right. Sometimes it might just be changing clothes. It might just be, I just need to wear like whatever regular acceptable clothes aren't it today. I just need to be able to wear gym shorts and a baggy shirt. It's like, all right, I'll throw on some sweats and we'll go. It seems so small and so dumb, but like sometimes those little things, God, Luna's ball. Sometimes like that is a big, so I think a lot of it is just even that just the realizing that each other, like, we haven't eaten. Have you eaten anything? No. Just
that's a
those
question
more
we
of
ask
like,
each other a lot now, actually.
yeah,
When's the last time you ate? And usually it doesn't matter who it is. Usually we're like, yeah, I should probably eat.
notorious for eating lunch at like 4:00 on my way home if I'm on my way home from work. I'm like, oh shit, I guess I'm eating now. Or same with you at the salon, right? Working one of your long days. You're like, yeah, I've had like an Uncrustable for the entire 10 hours I was there. No breakfast, nothing. That was it. So that'd be another big thing. Is just now that we talk about it and we're open about it. That was just one example, but just of like we're able to try to like express where we're at with the things like that. So same thing where, you might be, you just all of a sudden want to start organizing
Hyper
and cleaning
focus
something. What was that?
or rearranging. I said a hyper
Rearranging.
focus
When
or rearranging.
I'll come home from somewhere late. Let's say I had a really long late night at work, whatever it is. And then I come home at like 9 o'clock and the living room is all ripped apart because you're moving stuff around again. And it's like,
Me never.
what's happening? And then you just have it on your face. I'm in it. Sorry, but this is happening. Like, I can't get out of it. This is my hyper focus right now, and it's happening. And it's like, okay, yeah, I guess I'll help spin the couch around. I could come in and be like, what the hell are you doing? And throw a fit. But now it's just kind of like, I guess this is
I
what it
remember the
is.
first time telling you, and it's hard because like we're on opposite ends of that, where like I get bored very easily in a lot of things. I really like change, and Scott, you prefer routine most things, most times. Change is harder for you, it takes longer to transition, all of those things. So we're on opposite ends when it comes to things like that, where I'm like, oh my God, I need this to be different and I need it to be different right now. And you're like, oh God, please don't. So it's also hard when there's a mismatch. And I remember the first time telling you when I was rearranging things, I was like, I know this is really stressful for you. And I was like, I need you to know that like I need to do this. Like I can't even explain it. I have to do this. It sounds kind of silly, but I was like, this is going to drive me. I will not stop thinking about it. That's all I'm going to want to do until I move this couch over here and see what it looks like.
And then there's other times where you start talking about it, and I'm honest with you and be like, you're on your own on this one. Like, I can't. I'm going to lose my shit if I got to do this again right now, But I'm also the kind of person who like my keys, my keys and wallet, whatever, are in the same one or two spots, like religiously. My kids will joke that when we go to leave the house, I have to like do the ritual of like phone, wallet, keys. So heaven forbid when you go to reorganize and my keys are not in one of two spots, like I've had full blown rage, like meltdowns, like leaving for work because my keys got put 5 feet over off to the side. And they're not in those couple spots.
I can see. I mean, and I
But
like the difference of like before, like not knowing, not understanding, like why that would send you into such a rage. Like, it's like, why is this a big deal? Like, they're just right there. Like, you think someone's overreacting or being dramatic or whatever. And now it's like, oh no, now we understand that change is hard for you most of the time. And it doesn't have to be a big change, it can be a little change. And that's not even something like personal to me. I don't have to take that personally. That it was my fault that because I moved something,
yeah, whereas
so we have
before,
that understanding now.
yeah, whereas before that might be enough to like, all right, it's gonna be kind of a shitty evening when we both get home from work because there's funk in the air and we got to figure, everyone who's got a partner out there knows that feeling, unfortunately. But
Yeah, when you don't know why it's happening or don't understand it, it's very different.
well, I'm just looking at the time. I want to talk. I want to monologue. I know you do too. This is going to be a reoccurring theme with these episodes is trying to cut ourselves off. Or I'd be curious if someone's keeping a tally out there. If this was supposed to be a straight line, how many times did we veer off?
Welcome to the club.
Yeah.
If you're neurodivergent, you get it. If you live with someone
Yep.
who is, you get it.
But going forward, hopefully that's kind of enough of our background. I'm sure we're going to get all kinds of in depth with it. I mean, we could both talk and talk and talk about it. So trying to get just the meat and potatoes for you probably isn't
Plenty
the
of
best
episodes.
suit.
We have
Yep.
plenty of content for more episodes, you guys.
Yep. So with that,
So hopefully you like listening to us.
I'm going to say either way, like, for anyone who found this, hopefully you got literally anything out of it, any kind of information or something relatable. But me personally, my biggest hope with this is just for that, even if it's one person out there to just, to know they're not alone in it, right? Like if they can relate to literally anything that we talk about on here, that it's not just them, they're not crazy. They're like, there's other people out there that are going through it, through all the funny positive stuff or through the shitty low stuff. And we're definitely going to get into all of it. All right, so with that, we'll try to cut ourselves off here and not just make a 12-hour long single podcast.
Don't tempt us.
Going forward, I mean, that's to a point, that's kind of what it is, right? A lot of these conversations are really hard to have in like a tight knit little time window. Some of the stuff is so nuanced or could take so long to either try to explain, or if any of you out there have ever talked to somebody and you both are, say, talking about X, Y, or Z and you both relate to it, you're going to be there for an hour. If you've had that, you know exactly what I'm talking about. We'd love to hear any feedback. If it's you want us to look into the microphone, it's not happening. This episode, surprisingly, I'm not. The last anything we've ever recorded, I've had to play like Diablo 4 in the background to try to cure my brain just enough to be able to talk and not lose my shit thinking about being videotaped. So that's not going to happen. But anything else, if there's specific things you want to talk about, or whether it could be anything sensory, anything food, anything, just anything at all.
So with that being said, we have so much more to talk about, so much more to share. We can deep dive on so many different areas of relationships, parenting, sensory, masking. We have a lot more to come, and we hope that you feel seen and heard in some way, and that if one person feels that, we will be thrilled. That's one thing that I have really learned this year specifically is the more vulnerable I am, the more connection I find with people, because it's never just you. And you don't know that until you start talking about these things. So that's really why we're here. We know we're not the only ones, and we want you all to know that you're not the only ones too. So this is why we're here. We want people to feel seen and heard and less alone in their neurodivergent. Scott, final words?
Yeah. I would just kind of say, circling back to the now what, I mean, there's, a whole spectrum of that, no pun intended. Like we said earlier, we definitely don't have our stuff figured out. We're still muddling through everything just like you probably are. I don't think anyone has a perfect answer on it, and that's fine. That's okay. That's like Sam said, that's the whole reason why we're here. Right? I know even just being here talking to Sam is still fun for me. It's a lot to think about. It's a lot of excitement. Hopefully, literally a single person finds this and gets literally anything out of it. Like that's it. That's the peak for me with this whole process. Is there's one person out there that just might be going through X, Y, or Z wherever they're at in it, and just it's like, all right, cool. It's not just me, right? Like that's all I'm hoping for. Let us know any feedback. Let us know if the hate to say tech equipment side, because I've already kind of been obsessing over that just a little bit, but if there's any issues with that, let us know. If you want more eye contact, you can hit the door, because that shit's not happening. Let's be real. This is the first time I've done this and not played Diablo 4 at the same time, just to cure
Oh, you're
my
not
brain.
playing at all?
No, not this time. I'm not. No, but I mean, honestly, if there's stuff you want someone to talk about, if you have questions on, again, we're not professionals. I'm not a medical professional, but whatever we can find experiences, whatever we can find in our circle of friends or people we know, or if we can find anything, if we can outsource something that can help you, let us know, or we'll drop nuggets as we go. Sam's read a whole library worth of books already, and she'll recommend them as we go. I'll leave all of the social linking to you, Sam, here in a second, as far as where to find us. Also, Sam just had her second appearance on another podcast. Again, talking about the same topic. If you also want to plug that, if you haven't seen already, check out the bloopers. I think they're on Spotify already. I don't know if they're going to be everywhere else or not. There's a shit ton of those. If you like those, if that's something quirky, dumb thing you like, it's super fast for us to put them together. If you don't like them and you think they're dumb, tough shit, we're probably going to put them out anyways.
Too bad. We're still going to make them, because they make us laugh. And maybe they'll make you laugh too. I have been on my dear friend Heather Wild, her podcast, Startin Some Ripples. That was a big inspiration for us to kind of start this, as she had me on her podcast this spring, and I was talking about this kind of stuff, and it had really great feedback and became the #1 listened to episode on her show. So I thought, well, people like this, maybe we should make some more content talking about it. So that has been a big reason why we decided to do this as well. And we just released another episode on her show. So go check out Startin Some Ripples podcast. Heather's wonderful. If you want to come hang out with us for more good times, we host a weekly group support space on Thursdays. It's all virtual, small group, come as you are, no pressure to be anything than what you are at that moment. We just wanted to have a space to build community outside of the podcast as well. So you can find that in the link at the show notes. If any of this resonates with you, we would love for you to stick around. You can follow us on Instagram, neurodivergent, not broken. Really, anywhere it's going to be neurodivergent, not broken, but all the links for everything will be in the show notes. So thank you all for being here and listening to us. Share this with someone if you think they would like it. Till next time, see you on the socials.